something smart to chew on. The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom, informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI, food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International for Wednesday, May the 29th, 2024. This is program number 1184 of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, in addition to radio on 101.1 FM, you can get us at our website. It is rcisaintlucia.com. We are streaming live there as well. You can download our previous shows on the website. You can also get us on Facebook Live. We're streaming there. And you just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International on Facebook. And be sure to share and like that link as well, please, with your friends and family. And speaking about friends and family, I want to send out some birthday greetings for today. First going on to Miss Mary Bruce, happy birthday to you. Also to Denise Holden, happy birthday to you. And we're hoping that you're having a fantastic birthday celebration. And also to Mr. Hassan Aries, say happy birthday to you, sir. And we do hope that you're having a wonderful birthday. If you want to call in the program to tell us what's all played today, the number to do so is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. You can also message in on WhatsApp. That is 724-0008. Again, 74008. And you can call in, message in on that WhatsApp number. Bit of history for today. Well, on this day in the year 1453, Constantinople, the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, fell to the Ottoman Turks under Mehmed the Conqueror, ending the Byzantine Empire after 1100 years. And on the year in the year 1953, Edmund Hillary of New Zealand and Tenzing Norgay of Nepal were the first known individuals to reach the summit of Mount Everest. That was part of a British expedition. And we now move on to our dish of the day. The daily dish is brought to you the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One test for you, my see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need test for your balcony. Come down to Test Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Test Plus, Test Plus, Test Plus. Because you want to cost. Customer service. 8 plus this. All kind of test. Come down to Test Plus. You're super. That's and vanity. Boss, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. We got the best as an island. Trust me. We are located at Luxury Industries. Boss. Telephone number 453-793.
Serving now. The Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Now, not too long ago, we, in fact, announced that there was, in fact, a gazette circulating indicating that the government was, through the Minimum Wages Commission, seeking comment on the proposal for setting a minimum wage for St. Lucia. And of course, the matter of the minimum wage has been a long-standing discourse here in this country. And in fact, I'm not even too sure that St. Lucia's minimum wage is even very well appreciated or known by many, because it is and has been so out of sync with reality that it has certainly simply not even been applied for most individuals. And so that has certainly been a matter of discussion in terms of reforms to the labor market and to improve on the conditions of individuals to ensure that they can actually get a fair salary. As per a list of minimum wages that exist, according to what is available in the internet, the minimum wage in St. Lucia for office clerks is, and this is the way it's stated, office clerks is 300 EC dollars per month. Shop assistants, 200 EC dollars per month, and messengers, $160 per month. And this is effectively what appears to exist as of now in terms of minimum wages in St. Lucia. So theoretically, somebody could be getting $160 a month after working 40 hours, 40 hours a week, and working for 4 weeks roughly, a little over 4 weeks. And all they could be expected to actually get out of that is somewhere in the region of $1 an hour. So there has been work done, a report prepared by that commission, and it was in fact headed by long-standing trade union activist and a gentleman who worked in labor for a very long time, Mr. Lawrence Poyot. And they, in fact, that commission came up with a recommendation that the minimum wage for St. Lucia should be set at $6.50 per hour, or placed another way, for an 8-hour work week at the rate of about $52 per day, or $1,126 a month. Now, of course, that is the recommendation coming from the Commission, and the Commission has now invited comments from the public to provide their views on that figure, and of course to give yay or nay, to suggest whether they believe it should be higher or lower. And it will, of course, be very interesting to see the response at this point regarding what actually comes out from the public in terms of public sentiment, which of course is certainly very important, because one can well imagine that the public would know perhaps what is best in terms of setting something that they believe is in fact workable, both from the perspective of the employer and of course from the perspective of employees. And of course that is still a matter that is ongoing. Now, the opposition United Workers' Party has criticized the proposed minimum wage as being insufficient. So assumingly they will of course be writing into the Commission to provide those their point of view in writing, so that that can be taken up by the Commission. But there's a story about that coming out of Loop St. Lucia, which I just want to share with you in its totality. The opposition United Workers' Party, UWP, has criticized the government's proposed minimum wage of $6.50 an hour, or $1,126 a month, calling it inadequate given the current cost of living. UWP's first deputy leader, Guy Joseph, during a press conference on Tuesday, highlighted the rising cost of basic necessities as a key reason for the need to increase the minimum wage to $8 an hour. Quote, "The price of bread has almost doubled. The price of fuel is artificially high at $16.50. $6.50. A tank of cooking gas is high, and every time you go to the grocery store, the prices are higher. We have seen with KFC the 2.5% levy imposed by the government. So by the time you look at the $6.50 proposed by the government, more than that has been consumed," Joseph argued. Joseph also raised concerns about the potential for employers to exploit the minimum wage. He suggested that some employers who are currently paying above the proposed minimum might reduce wages to the minimum rate if the government's proposal is implemented. There are many employers who are already paying more than what the government is offering. Can they dismiss these workers that they are paying at a higher rate and now employ workers they can now begin at the minimum wage? Joseph questioned. The UWP claims that the minimum wage proposal is a political maneuver by the St. Lucia Labour Party ahead of the upcoming elections. Joseph pointed out the shift in government rhetoric from a livable wage to a minimum wage and criticized the proposed rate as one of the lowest in the region. First of all, the government spoke about a livable wage, and all of a sudden the discussion changed from a livable wage to a minimum wage. I believe it is embarrassing to go to Parliament to pass a law where Dominica is $10, St. Kitts is about $9.50. In fact, the only country in the OECS that would have a lower minimum wage than us is St. Vincent, which is at $6.25, Joseph said. During the tenure of the former administration, minimum wage was never implemented, nor was it discussed. And that is a story coming out of the Loop St. Lucia regarding the matter of minimum wage, minimum wages in St. Lucia, and the proposal that is being made, as well, of course, as some comparatives there with respect to the other islands within the OECS. Now, of course, this is a matter, especially when you're looking at the comparatives, is very useful. But no doubt, I would well imagine that the Commission would have certainly looked at the matter of cost of living to be able to determine the rough, or give some sort of guidance, of course, as to what is reasonable. Now, and of course, there was an example given in the case of St. Kitts and Nevis being $9.50 per hour. Now, you would also, of course, have to look at what are the wages, the situation of wages on a whole, salaries on a whole in each country, to be able to give a reasonable comparison in terms of where the salaries are now, and what it would it cost an individual to be able to meet their basic necessities as they move forward. I believe, for instance, in the case of Grenada, their rate is somewhere about $8.50 today, and they are, as was of course mentioned in the case of St. Vincent, Grenada and St. Vincent and Dominica have tended to have lower salary scales than St. Lucia for many years, and that trend has continued, and we certainly see it in terms of the public service and in the private sector. The salary rates will tend to be lower in some of these territories, whereas in the Leeward Islands, you tend to actually have what would appear to be higher salaries, but then generally speaking, the cost of living in some of these islands is in fact higher. In particular, the cost of goods and services will tend to be harder to come by in some of these countries. So, of course, all of these things have to be looked at, and it would be very useful, of course, to do and look at those comparatives, and to, of course, also look at what other supports are available to individuals who would then find themselves in and around this minimum wage, or in a low income bracket. Now, of course, the government quite recently also introduced the raising of the personal allowance, which within the tax, personal income tax, and that in fact has shifted upwards from where it was originally, was it some $18,000, and that's now up to $25,000. So that of course would mean that individuals are now not paying taxes. So of course you would also have to look at that aspect within some comparisons that exist in other places, and also there are other social supports that exist to be able to support those individuals. A very good example of that in the case of Antigua and Barbuda for a very long time, individuals actually get a significant amount of support in terms of access to education. So it's not just the tuition that is free, but also that of the school books, as well as school feeding programs, and uniforms. Those are in fact all subsidized by the government. So it'll be a very interesting conversation to have when hopefully we can have that conversation in just a bit. That's our dish of the day.
This has been the Daily Dish.
One test for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need test for your balcony. Come down to test for satisfaction guarantee. Test plus. Because you can beat double cost. Customer service, A plus the fuck. Now test come down to test plus. We are so glad that's where and vanity. Boss, you see. Come down to my new boy. We got the best test on island. Just me. We are located along Street Industries. Postage you Grace Lakes. Flat Street in Jufort. Phone number 453-7939. Test plus.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046, 452-3046, as well as our WhatsApp number, 724-0008, again, 724-0008. And we are discussing the issue of minimum wages. Interesting point being made by Mr. Joseph, suggesting that, well, maybe individuals are paying people at a higher rate than the minimum wage will somehow retrench those workers and then bring on other people at a lower rate. I'm not too sure how that is going to pan out, because if you actually, of course, do have individuals who've been working with you for a while, then you'd have to, of course, compensate them for that severance and what have you. I would likely not see that panning out. Quite likely, of course, there will be a significant number of individuals who are likely making less than that proposed rate, or whatever that the final decision is on that minimum wage, who will actually have to then get increases in salaries. The risk, which sometimes is put forward by individuals who are against the minimum wage, is that what businesses will tend to do is that they may very well decide to retrench some of those, or set, if they've got, say, 10 people making less than the minimum wage, they may very well decide that to cut back on staff. And so that is certainly a potential risk that sometimes comes about in this sort of situation. But it therefore means, of course, that productivity may very well have to go up by virtue of that. So it would be very interesting to see the kind of analysis that was actually put forward, and to get a sense of the numbers. I think I did see one sort of a infographic being shared, which suggested that there was in terms of the numbers of individuals who are currently making less than what is being proposed, and they were being put forward as net beneficiaries. for this move. Of course, invariably, there'll be the majority of the population will probably not be at this point. And so it really is a means of protecting individuals at the bottom end of the spectrum, and to ensure that there is, in fact, good cover for those individuals. Sometimes, by virtue of doing that, there may have to be overall restructuring, or it might very well mean that the wages then come closer, and there's a reduction in the overall spread in the what is available in that regard. Some people might still be wondering what is the minimum wage and where that all came about. We do have a clip, a very interesting little clip out of the United States of America, the PBS, Public Broadcasting Service, which kind of gives an explanation of that. So let's take a listen to this, basically explaining where the minimum wage or the idea all came from.
The minimum wage is a topic of ongoing debate and has been since it was conceived and implemented in countries around the world, starting in the 19th century. Designed as a protection for employees to make sure, in theory, that they make wages commensurate with the cost of living, the minimum wage draws pretty passionate opinions from all corners, including those who want to see it raised, those who want it to stay the same, and some who want it abolished altogether. But when this start, why? To start off today's episode, we should first ask ourselves, what is the minimum wage? To answer this question, we're going to turn to our friends over at 2 cents.
I'm Julia Lorenz-Olson.
And I'm Philip Olson.
The minimum wage is the rate of pay set by the local or federal government, and it's designed to prevent people from being paid less than a certain rate. Today, the minimum wage is extended to large swaths of employees across the U.S., although certain industries are excluded, such as workers who make tips, teenage trainees, some agricultural workers, and home care aides.
So now we have to ask, what existed before the minimum wage? Well, just before minimum wage laws started springing up around the world in the late 19th century, we see the rise of industrial factories with cramped living quarters, low pay, and harsh working conditions. And these conditions existed because employers had little to no obligations to ensure the safety and security of their numerous employees. Want to force a 7-year-old to work in a factory all day? No problem. Want to cut an employee's salary in half to increase your own profits? Go right ahead. In their book, Minimum Wage, economists David Newmark and William L. Washer note that the minimum wage, which sprung up first in New Zealand and Australia in the 1890s, was initially geared towards protecting the labor of women and children, aligning what they made per hour with what was needed to survive. And in 1890, there was a pretty wide gap between the average American's take-home pay of approximately $380 a year and the poverty line, which was set around $500 a year. Employers decided what they felt was a fair wage for the labor performed by their employees and had a take or leave it attitude that left many vulnerable workers out in the cold. But it wouldn't be until 1938 that there was a nationwide minimum wage. Okay, so robber barons and big moguls weren't giving employees a fair shake in the latter half of the 19th century and into the early 20th century. But the federal government still hadn't passed a successful minimum wage law nationwide, and employees weren't taking things lying down. So that leads us to our next question. How did labor movements impact the spread of the minimum wage to the federal level? So after the first minimum wages sprung up down under, the fair labor trend spread to other regions and countries, such as the UK in 1909, and the US passing the Fair Labor Standards Act in 1938. But these didn't just pop up because the government and business owners suddenly had a change of heart, but rather because of ongoing agitation from workers and good old-fashioned strikes, sometimes through union organizing and sometimes through collective action that employees took without union protections. Because strike isn't just something you yell at the opposing team during a baseball game. And some particularly important strikes that helped to shift labor laws in the US were the Pullman Workers' Strike of 1894, where railroad workers in the Midwest rejected the Pullman Company's decision to decrease their pay by 25%, while keeping the cost of living, including rent and fees, in the company-operated town of Pullman the same. The resulting fallout led President Cleveland and the Congress to establish Labor Day, and it was a group of Pullman workers in the 1920s who would go on to form the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. Then there was my favorite labor uprising that inspired a Broadway musical after Evita, the Newsboys Strike of 1899. But before I get busy saying a 5, 6, 7, 8, I'll just add that these scrappy little imps inspired a huge blowback when they protested the rise in price per paper of the Evening World and Evening Journal. Newsboys were responsible for writing their own papers, which they then sold to make a profit. But they weren't refunded for unsold papers if they didn't manage to hawk their wares, and the price hike was cutting into their already paper-thin margins, since at the time the average newsboy only made a meager 26 cents a day. And then there was the mill workers' strike of Lawrence, Massachusetts, which shook the nation and came to be known colloquially as the Bread and Roses strike. Led in large part by women and some men who were working at mills in the bustling immigrant hub, they led a strike in 1912 to stop working when their pay was summarily cut. The national sentiment was on the side of the workers once images of mothers being dragged by their hair as they tried to send their young children out of the rising turmoil, alongside testimony from the children, started to circulate. And as a result, President Taft sent the Attorney General to investigate the working conditions, and the striking workers received a 15% pay raise, among other demands. New Morgan Washer noted that employers were seen as having an outsized amount of control over their workers, so the minimum wage was supposed to guarantee that employees can arbitrarily be given substandard wages, especially in the lowest paid industries. When the minimum wage first reached the US, it was at the state level, starting in 1912 with Massachusetts. And between 1913 and 1917, 11 more states passed laws that were centered around a minimum wage for women and children. But at that point, men were still not covered. The reason that women and children weren't able to join unions, so there was more attention to their need for government protections. Okay, so strikers were striking even before they had those big blow-up rats to put in front of businesses. And the images of women and children on strike in particular proved effective in winning over public sentiment, especially since they were barred from the protections of unions and trade groups that were afforded to men. And that leads us to our final question. When did the minimum wage go into effect nationwide? Well, after all the brouhaha of the 19th century and early 20th century, there was an interest in codifying the salaries of workers. And before there was a fight for 15, there was a fight for 25 cents. That's right, when the Fair Labor Standards Act was finally passed in the US in 1938, it set the minimum wage for eligible employees at 25 cents an hour. But the FLSA also included laws about the working conditions and ages of children, fair pay for overtime, set the 40-hour work week, weekend, and added bookkeeping regulations for businesses. And when it was first passed, the law covered about 20% of the labor force, but now it's applicable to over 80% of workers. But the road for bringing this act into action wasn't entirely smooth. In Harrod versus Dagenhart in 1918, the Supreme Court overturned child labor laws, and Atkins versus Children's Hospital in 1923 had the Supreme Court rule against the District of Columbia's minimum wage requirements for women. And FDR's National Industrial Recovery Act of 1933, which attempted to lower competition, put caps on the work week at 40 hours, limit the employment of young children, and encourage reemployment, was also thrown out as unconstitutional in 1935. So by the time the FLSA rolled around, there were a couple of things boiling under the surface. A history of worker strikes and uprisings, other nations who had successfully passed minimum wage laws, and a history of labor laws in the US being deemed unconstitutional in favor of the interests of big businesses. But although there was uproar and pushback from industry executives and members of Congress who opposed the bill, President Roosevelt warned his listeners during one of his broadcast fireside chats, "Do not let any calamity-howling executive with an income of $1,000 a day tell you that a wage of $11 a week is going to have a disastrous effect on all American industry." The bill was shepherded through Congress by Representative Mary Norton of New Jersey, who was the chairwoman of the House Labor Committee. On June 25th, 1938, FDR signed the FLSA, sometimes known as the Wages and Hours Bill, along with 120 other bills all on the same day. This was a way of kind of flooding the market with new laws to review and prevent the bill from being overturned as unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. And it worked. And over time, the protections of the minimum wage were viewed as beneficial to all workers and began to be extended to men and to the majority of employees. But there's one piece of personal information you need to know, so 2 cents, take it away.
Since its first implementation, the U.S. federal minimum wage has been raised 22 times, but most recently in 2009, when it was raised to $7.25. But many states also set their own minimum wages, and it's a good thing for workers, since even if the wage rate in your state doesn't match the federal minimum wage, employers are bound by law to pay you whichever one is the higher number.
So, how does it all add up? Well, the minimum wage was first implemented in large part to protect specific employees in vulnerable industries from receiving low pay, but now it's extended to cover most employees nationwide. And the implementation of the minimum wage wasn't the end of labor organizing across the U.S. There was the Memphis sanitation workers' strikes of 1968, the New York City garbage workers' strike of that same year, and the 1965 farm workers' strikes when the Farm Workers Association, led by Cesar Chavez, joined forces with a strike of Filipino workers in Delano's field. So it seems that these legislative changes, which we now take as the norm, came about through consistent people power, and battles over wages and equity are still raging on in discussions of gender discrimination and raising the minimum wage from $7.25 to a rate that gets closer to the cost of living nationwide, with some states and cities already getting the ball rolling. But the issue remains contentious. And this concludes fanfic episode number 4, and the shout out goes to Brian Spo on YouTube, who asked at the end of our episode on birth control if I could cover the history of the minimum wage. I am nothing if not a fan pleaser.
All right, thank you very much for that. And of course, we are due for our weather report. So we're going to take our weather report, and then when we come back, we can take in some calls.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home. Really? Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with these tile stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up. What are you looking for? Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle. Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath. They're my #1 store for everything tile. And with a new in living color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous tiles with that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for. That sounds perfect. I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation. I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Star showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, Fort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
Of course, on 1.1 is now time for your weather report as of Tomlin today, presented by Island Style Tile and Bath. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from the east and east-southeast near 20 miles per hour or 31 kilometers per hour with higher gusts and near showers. The weather partly and hazy for a few showers, at first becoming increasingly cloudy with scattered showers and a chance of isolated thunderstorms from late tonight into tomorrow. And there is an advisory in Harry Street. Persons with respiratory ailments and dust allergies are advised to take the necessary precautions due to reduced air quality. Also, small craft operators should exercise caution due to reduced visibility and above normal seas. The forecast for the last entity is expected to be partly cloudy and hazy for a few showers, at first becoming increasingly cloudy with scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms from late tonight into tomorrow. And the weather summary: a tropical wave located just east of the southern Windward Islands is moving westward near 70 miles per hour or 28 kilometers per hour. The system is in combination with Pacific trough presently located over the Leeward Islands will cause some shower periods and isolated thunderstorms over the region during the next 24 hours. Another tropical wave over the eastern tropical Atlantic is moving westward near 21 miles per hour or 33 kilometers per hour. A plume of Saharan dust haze will cause a reduction in visibility and air quality across the eastern Caribbean region over the next few days. And this was your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Tile and Bath.
This has been RCI Weather News. For more information, call the weather hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101, number 1.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home. Really? Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with these tile stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up. What are you looking for? Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle-dazzle. Okay, Ms. Razzle-Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath. They're my number one store for everything tile. And with the new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous styles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for. That sounds perfect. I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation. I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Robbie Bay, and View Fort. Call 450-452 or 453 Tile will help bring your vision to life in living color.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. We've got about 17 minutes to go before the hour of 2 o'clock. And we've been discussing the matter of the minimum wage. It's been pretty topical of late as a result of a recent invitation for comment by the Commission, which has made the recommendation to set the minimum wage for St. Lucia at $6.50 an hour. But let's go to the phone lines to get some input. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunch. What's on your plate today?
Yes, Alex. Good afternoon.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man.
Good.
Now, Alex, I don't know if it is me that heard wrong because I've been hearing people talking about the minimum wage, but what I heard the Prime Minister was the word was livable wage.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
yes.
To me, there's a big difference between a livable wage and a minimum wage.
What's the difference though? That's the big question.
No. The difference would be a livable wage. It's a salary that will get you at least paying your bills, such as water, electricity, maybe and a little internet, and being able to feed yourself. But when I'm hearing about $6 and something cents an hour in these days, in this time, sometimes an insult to the working class.
But don't you think that the livable wage, the minimum wage should be a livable wage? I mean, that's the idea that the minimum wage.
It's nowhere close to that. If you're going to tell me in 2024, the minimum wage would not allow anybody to have $1,500 in their hands, something is very wrong with us. Considering you had, I think sometime last year, a business house was fronting around with making about $300 billion profit in a calendar year. That was not, we never got anybody come in and say, well, that was not true. $200+ million a year profit. Then you have the Syrian community and the Indian community, that is the second largest business people we have there, who are living, all of them at Rodney Heights, and all of them driving fancy vehicles, have big houses, and there are people working for these people. Our people are working for these people. Even my sisters, I can mention, because that's the reality. They are the one who control the workforce. There are people who still get $1,100 a month working for these people. Some people are getting $800 a month. That could be a livable wage. It can be a minimum wage.
So from your opinion, you think $1,500 a month should be the minimum. That works out to be about $8.65. $8.65
and nobody
an
tell
hour.
Me these people cannot do that. We have free class. We have government. You have the public sector. You have supermarkets, and you have the Syrians, and you have the clothing sector. These people are driving the top vehicles we have in Lucia. Okay, they live at Rodney Heights. We know them. They live at Rodney Bay. They are living very comfortable. And to tell me, my people today gonna have to leave their home with 2 fit children. How do they do it with $1,000 a month? How? I just want the Prime Minister, anybody, to come break it down. Let us see what they can afford. Water, electricity. Now, don't tell me they're not subject to the internet. We live in the 21st century. The price of every commodity has sky high there. It's skyrocketed there. So I believe, and I want to stick by the word the Prime Minister was using, is a livable wage. She was very particular about that word. A livable wage.
Right.
But what is being proposed there is pure garbage.
So it's insufficient.
Pardon me?
You're saying that the proposal of the commission is inadequate. You're not satisfied with the amount.
It's an insult. You know it's an insult.
Yeah, well, I already opined on that earlier on sometime, and I did think it was a little low.
The price of chicken back alone, which is the lowest grade meat product you could get here. We could barely afford it now. And we're talking about a livable wage, and people will not be making a 1.5 a month. Come on. The guy's not just food, that's utilities, that's everything.
Mm-hmm. And the cost of housing as well, transport.
Exactly.
So you're going to have the entire basket looked at.
Let us say somebody is working and then gets $1,200 a month. You will not get any house, any rental apartment here, or any rental room here that costs you less than $500 a month. And we're talking about basic needs. We're not talking about flushing toilets. We're talking about ghetto kind of things. Okay? People know housing is a critical thing. You will not get it. Single apartments going for $1,000. How is it? $6.50 an hour. You know how much you could do for an hour?
That's 60 minutes, so that's quite a bit of time.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. Break the minutes by cents. You're going to see. I believe we're talking about, because nobody will ever be satisfied with what they get. But if we talk about wage, nobody, even the government has caregivers getting about $1,100 a month. Caregivers, they'll give senior citizens. They are paying them $1,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
This is from the government. I'm not blaming JTA. He just came. But this is what it is. Now these people are big people. They have the bills, they have everything. Now man, we have to get up, man, from our sleeping and somewhere, and we're really out of touch with reality, man. Now in my legs.
And in that instance, they may be making $1,000 a month, but they may not necessarily be working 8 hours a week. 8 hours a day, sorry.
They are working 8 hours a week.
They work 8 hours a day, yeah. Okay.
Yes, sorry, a day. They do.
Okay.
That also, government doesn't give them transport, and they have to pay transport every day.
Mm. And that's you talking about the home health program?
Yes, my boy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, my son. Yes, sir. Now, Alex, I don't know what you know, but there's a program. If you didn't know, now you know. A trainer program. I like the program a lot. I want to know, where are we at this juncture with respect to the special prosecutor? The taxpayers need to know what's going on. Is anything happening? Is this gentleman there? We're not hearing anything. I would wish to know where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
This is politically speaking, we remain 2 more years to go in our political life, all the assembly. If 3 years on the 26th of July, we're not even hearing of anybody being mentioned. And St. I don't believe news can be so isolated, so private that nobody can even leak some information. And I see.
You're speaking about in terms of when you say names mentioned, you're referring to the name of the special prosecutor, or
no. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I just want to know how advanced his work is. I mean, where are we?
Okay.
Where is he? With respect to any findings that you and I know.
His investigation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his investigation. Where are we? I mean, inquiring minds want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Inquiring minds want to know. I want to know because I have a feeling. If this thing, now what I wanted to know, if a change of government happens, would the other government acknowledge like they've done before? I know it's a parliamentary decision, but can it continue? Will it continue? That's what I want to know.
Those are all very, very important questions, and how free a hand does that individual have, of course.
Exactly.
I mean, it is there's always been.
Man, Calix, we're talking about millions of dollars, man. Let us just look at the Bado once more. The government had spent $50 million on that. It was given for $13 million. I mean, somebody must have benefited in that. Then you turn back and you give a rental of 16.5 years at $1 million a month. Look, these are just trying to poor country into some serious debt. We need to know who's benefiting. We need to know, go in the belly of this thing and find out how this deal was allowed to. What the permanent secretary is supposed to be watchdog of the taxpayers. They're still laughing and the government beat them up. How they have been doing a great job. Ha 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 ha. These people allow millions of dollars to live government coffers. I just want to know how St. Jude's You give a direct award for 3 million. At the end of the day, this earthworks could cost 9 million. Somebody have to understand. Somebody have to answer that. So why is this Mr. Prosecutor taking so long to even have a case here? That is corruption, bro. Direct award 3 million. That is end of the earthworks, meaning just taking out dirt. Okay? I don't know if there was a nuclear mine there or some bomb was there, but we need to know. To have cost $9 million, Calix. Taxpayers' money. This cannot be right. And these guys still showing up their faces on my television every so often. Even this afternoon, I see one of them guys on the news talking about minimum wage. Yeah? These guys have caused this country serious debt.
Well, we don't know that. That's the point. But
I know that for a fact. We all know. It cannot be. You have a direct award for $3 million. That's already big profit. By the time they end up doing it, it cost $9 million, $6 million, more. Guys, our money is not Guyanese dollars or Jamaican dollars. We are 2.7169 to the US. Okay, thank you.
All right, then. Caller, thanks for your opinion. And of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. We have some comments here, and that is on the matter of the minimum wage. So what about the small businesses, the three-man business? How do they offer $1,500 without getting rid of people? There are more small businesses than large businesses. If the rate is placed too high at one time, you will find businesses closing. Prices will increase at all stores and place the workers back in the same position, if not a worse position. The minimum rates have to increase incrementally and not a sudden shock to you in the economy. The mighty U.S. federal minimum wage is $7.25. It has increased 22 times since inception, which of course we mentioned there in that piece out of the PBS. And so this individual is saying if the minimum rate is too high, people will be terminated. I hope the caller has made his recommendations to the Minimum Wage Commission. Now, of course, that is right. The U.S. has had a minimum wage, federal minimum wage of $7.25 U.S. For quite some time, since 2009. However, of course, the states tend to set their own minimum wages. In fact, I think in the case of New York, for instance, that was a big campaign to raise it to $15, where it is at currently, and they're even trying to raise it to $20, I believe, right about now. But let's take in another call. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Hi, good afternoon, Calix. How are you?
Not bad, thanks. How are you?
Good. Exactly what you read there, this email writer said there, that is exactly what I'm saying as well. I believe that the commission was looking more or less at the lower spectrum of the employers we have in St. Lucia, and which is small micro businesses. Or let me rephrase that. If we were to look at if we were to do the statistics as compared to from corporations, small businesses, micro businesses, or medium-sized businesses and micro businesses, we would see that the corporations, I'm assuming here, I'm assuming here, that corporations may be the smallest there in the brackets, and the medium and micro would be the largest. Would you brief me on that, Calix?
Well, I mean, we heard the story that definitely the MSME sector is in fact the largest sector, and you have a lot of employment in that field. But even to add to what you're saying, though, caller, you also have a lot of individuals who are in the agricultural sector, as well as the domestic sector.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Thank you.
Now, what is not clear is that if that wage is like it's a minimum across the board, you may sometimes also find that you may apply by sector minimum wages. And that's what some places do as well.
Right.
And in fact, even in the case of St. Lucia right now, that's what applies. You actually have different minimum wages based on the sector.
The sector, right.
So
for example, masons, construction workers get one thing.
So there may be a separate rate for construction or agriculture,
right,
or domestic work.
So that minimum wage there is pertaining to who? Isn't domestic agriculture workers coming in that?
Yeah, well, that would be for everybody. The figure that we're given, the across the board figure.
No, not for everybody. Not including construction workers like masons, carpenters. They're not included in that.
I don't know that we.
Yeah,
we have not.
That's what came out. That's what came out from the officials.
Well, that was not specific. That was not specific in the Gazette. The Gazette simply gave one rate.
But again, those people could be very confusing. Governmental processes could be very, very confusing because that came out officially from them. That the sectors of construction, including carpenters, masons, those people had their rates already.
No, they are recommended rates for maybe industry rates, basically. You can call them that.
Yes.
But those are not. That is not a minimum wage.
You're saying it's not official.
That's not the minimum, right? So that might be just what is given in practice.
But you see that's where I'm saying that's the confusion that come out. That's why you see we could never get things done back and proper in this country because one official source is one thing, another official source is another thing.
No, but within the construction sector, a mason is not likely to be getting a minimum wage.
No, right.
So
because masons already getting their rates. As I said, I don't know if it is actually so official that it is documented. But according to convention, according to convention, that's what happens there. A mason right now will get what, 120, 150, something like that. A carpenter would get, more or less the same thing,
And some of them that are very good might ask for a higher rate. So
right.
So you see, but those are just conventions. That's practice. That is not actually what is set in any law, right, or regulation.
But going back to my original point, what came out from the officials is that minimum rate does not pertain to those construction workers. That's what I said.
Well, so I don't know. So
anyway,
you may have somebody in the construction sector who may be doing some manual act or whatever, but some laborer, right? And the laborer might very well under that area, right?
Okay.
So in other words, in any sector across the board, that is what is being proposed is the minimum. Now the other side of that is to say that, look, is it fair? Okay, I may be a nanny or I may be a helper in a household, right? Do I still not have to survive? Do I still not have the same bill and wage? So there are certain things that individuals will require, and the question is, where does that fall? How much is that basket at this time to be able to support that? And what the employer would then be able to afford as well. But at the same time, even with the minimum wage, you still may find individuals requiring assistance, from government. And I think that is the other part of the conversation.
Yes.
That has to be put out there, that even with the minimum wage, you do not automatically solve poverty.
No.
It's one instrument, but it's not a panacea.
I think that generally, agreed to that. We will not solve everything 100%, but at least it takes us to a certain level where there's some level of satisfaction, saying, well, okay, I'm better off. I'm a little better off from one point to another.
Right. And where the employer is playing is paying their part or playing their part year one, right?
Right.
So that they're not taking advantage of any kind of situation.
But I'm of the view that from what I'm seeing and hearing people, is that they're placing our emphasis on major corporations. But then the major corporations could better afford to deal with that minimum wage than the employers which are the low, the medium or micro business. That's where a lot of the banging will take place, because a lot of those people there will find themselves unable to afford it. I could name some little areas there, but I will not do that. But how will those people now be able to afford that 650, which equates to 1,126 for the month? So that's why I think the commission was placing a lot of emphasis on that bracket there.
It's also a matter of productivity, perhaps, caller, right? And valuing somebody's time.
Right.
Now, let's, for argument's sake, say you have a domestic assistant or a laborer, somebody like that, right? Like that. You may find that, okay, before I was bringing this person on 5 days a week, right?
Yeah.
And the wage the minimum wage has come in.
So right now I could bring them in for 3 days.
Maybe I can now afford to bring them in for 4 days.
Oh, yeah.
And in that sort of situation, so instead of giving them a 40-hour week, I'm giving them a 52.
That's what a lot of that we may work out like that.
And it therefore means, well, then for the other day, they then have to find some other productivity.
Right.
So there is, if it's effectively about pricing people's work, right? What they're doing, at a reasonable rate.
Yeah.
So I think too there's benefit in that, right?
There is.
So where you have sometimes a lot of people may be in a position that they could be a lot more productive, right? And we talk about productivity in the civil service, but there's also productivity issues across the board, in all sectors. And so that too, I think, is another area where we have to ensure that so you have somebody come in, you can maximize. You will therefore be a lot more keen on ensuring that they are being productive for the time that they are in fact being paid for. So it could be that we have to look at it from that perspective, that the economy can do better if we are in fact paying people a proper rate.
A proper thing, But before I leave, I just want to point out that the key thing is that people have to be careful. It doesn't. This minimum wage thing doesn't only pertain to major corporations. It pertains to every one of us, including you and me.
Agreed.
We will employ somebody who can come and plow my land, come and plow my garden through it. Right now, we no longer just look at, give you $40 or $50 or $50. We have to we right now have to look at what is stated the minimum wage now. You understand?
Yeah, but I mean, right now, really and truly, you bring on somebody to work for you for a day. Chances are you're paying them more than $52.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, but
most
a lot
in very many
of that
cases right now.
A lot of that is not happening, Khalid.
Well,
the people you were calling and saying exploitation and blah blah blah. A lot of
you may have some exploitation going on right now. I'm not denying that for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I think from a reasonable perspective, you will already say that $52 a day. Chances are you actually pay more than that. You might be paying
more than that, right? Yeah.
Already.
Yeah.
So I do think there has to be something that is reasonable across the board.
But what I'm saying is that I'm putting emphasis on those who they have a habit of the same exploitation. What they're blaming, they're calling the corporations, major corporations of doing. They themselves doing it too. They will hire somebody, come by their home and they will pay them $40, $20, especially people like zombies and things. They hire them. Now you have to be fair now and give them what is actually stated or even more.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for that point. Very, very important point.
Right.
It's what is good is also good for the gander. It's going to have to be across the board when it comes to this matter. So it's all about ensuring that you've got a fair pay for the amount of time and effort that's been put in. But very, very interesting conversation. Thanks, of course, to the persons who have provided their inputs. And we won't be able to finish this today, of course, but we do hope that we can continue that conversation as the week goes on. Of course, tomorrow is a holiday here in St. Lucia. It's Corpus Christi. And so, of course, there'll be the traditional processions, religious processions happening across the island in various parishes. I think there's a special mass actually for the Apostolic Nuncio representative coming in here this afternoon at the cathedral. Over in South Africa, we mentioned yesterday there is an election on, a general election, which we are watching carefully. We won't get the results out until Sunday, I believe. And so it'd be very interesting to see how that, of course, pans out in that country of over 65 million people, the land of Nelson Mandela. And so that's our program for today. We will be back again on Friday. Hope you can join us for that, God willing. I'm your host, Alex Jr., saying goodbye.